Memory and forgetting. Memory. Memory is the means by which we draw on our past experiences in order to use this information in the present. Sternberg 1999. In simpler words, memory is essential to all our lives. Without a memory of the past, we cannot operate in the present or think about the future. Memory is conceptualized as a process consisting of three independent though interrelated stages. These are encoding, storage, and retrieval. First, encoding. Encoding refers to the process involved in the transformation of an event in the world into a representation in your mind brain. It is the first stage, which refers to a process by which information is recorded and registered for the first time so that it becomes usable by our memory system. There are three main ways in which information can be encoded: changed, visual picture, acoustic sound, and semantic meaning. A considerable amount of memory research has examined ways that events are encoded by manipulating the way people process materials during study episodes. Generally speaking, the encoding of an event can be relatively impoverished or enriched, and memory scientists have identified several encoding factors that tend to promote good memory performance. Attention is critical to the encoding of memories, but attention comes in many forms. According to some theories, these qualitative differences in how people attend to information are the main factors influencing how much they remember. For example, Craig and Lockhart 1972 argues that different rate of forgetting occur because some methods of encoding create more durable memory codes than others. 2. Storage. It is the second stage of memory, and storage refers to the process through which information is retained and held over a period of time. Storage is the more or less passive process of retaining information in the brain, whether in the sensory memory, the short term memory, or the more permanent long term memory. 3. Retrieval. It is the third stage of memory, and retrieval refers to processes involved in reconstructing what occurred at a particular place and time. In other words, retrieval refers to bringing the stored information to his or her awareness so that it can be used for performing various cognitive tasks such as problem solving and decision making. Memory scientists assume that retrieval processes are always initiated by retrieval cues, identifiable triggers or retrieval processes, and that the experience of remembering occurs when retrieval cues interact with information in memory traces. Stages of memory. Numerous theories began in earnest by Atkinson and Shiffrin in 1968 seem to suggest that our memories can be divided into three stores or stages. These are the sensory memory, short-term memory (STM), and long-term memory (LTM). Each of these systems has different features and performs different functions with respect to the sensory inputs. Sensory memory. Our sensory memory briefly stores information from our senses, eyes and ears, for example, and this enters the sensory information store. Sensory memory has a large capacity, however, it is of very short duration, that is less than a second. Incoming sensory information is stored in separate subsystems called sensory registers. Psychologists believe there are separate sensory registers for each of the senses. Iconic memory, from the Greek word icon, which means image, is the name given to visual sensory in memory, or the memory of visual sensory information. Visual images in their original form are usually retained in iconic memory for about one third of a second, or about 0.2 to 0.4 seconds, but they last just long enough for identification of the stimulus to begin. On the other hand, echoic memory, from the word echo, is the name given to auditory sensory memory, or the memory of auditory sensory information. Echoic memory processes all kinds of sounds such as speech, the barking of dog, and the horns of the vehicles. Echoic memory echoic memory stores information for longer periods and thus iconic memory, typically 3 to 4 seconds. Short term memory. Information that is intended to enter the second stage called the short-term memory or STM. It also sometimes called working memory, short-term memory storage. Storage is estimated to last anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds if the new information is not rehearsed. If the information is rehearsed, the information will last as long as the rehearsal process continues. The amount of information that can be stored in short-term memory can vary according to George Miller. People can store between 5 and 9 items in short-term memory. More recent research suggests that people are capable of storing approximately 4 chunks or pieces of information in short-term memory. Chunk refers to any discrete unit of information. For example, if you read letter barn barn once, it will be possible to remember about 7 of them. However, if the same letter is regrouped to spell Rabindranath, it would be easier to remember the entire group of letters. Thus, Rabindranath is a chunk. The information unit of information is now one unit of information. Through chunking, it is possible to expand the capacity of STM, that is short-term memory, which is otherwise 7 plus or minus 2. Information encoding is in short-term memory is acoustic in nature, that is, it consists of speech, sounds, visual images, and words. It is also semantic in nature, which means meaningful words may be stored easily than meaningless words. Long term memory. Through the process of association and rehearsal, the content of short term memory can become long term memory. It is a permanent storehouse of all information and stores a large amount of information over a long period of days, months, years, or even a lifetime. Long term memory is divided into two separate sections: declarative memory and procedural memory. Procedural memory involves memories of body movement and how to use objects in the environment. How to drive a car or use a computer are examples of procedural memories. However, declarative includes all of the memories that are available in consciousness. It can be further divided into episodic memory, specific events, and semantic memory, knowledge about the world. Episodic memory records an individual's past experiences and episodes of one's daily life. Episodic memory is both specific and autobiographical. For example, one remembers a birthday party attended yesterday means that the event is stored in episodic memory. Semantic memory, on the other hand, involves the abstract knowledge and meaning of words, symbols, ideas, and rules for relating them. For example, you need an article about mouth cancer resulting in death of many persons. Sometimes later the episode may be forgotten about, but the knowledge of the fact that smoking causes mouth cancer which lead to death remains in memory. This knowledge is a part of semantic memory. Episodic memory is more susceptible to forgetting as compared to semantic memory. Theories of forgetting retention loss refers to apparent loss of information already encoded and stored in an individual's long-term memory. It is a spontaneous or gradual process in which old memories are unable to be recalled from memory storage. Forgetting was first studied in detail by Hermann Ebbinghaus 1885 to 1913 in experiments where he used himself as the subject. Ebbinghaus tested his memory using three-letter nonsense syllables. These consist of a sequence of consonant, vowel, and consonant CVC that does not spell anything in one's language. In English, CAJ would be an example. Ebbinghaus constructed lists of perhaps 20 of these items and then proceeded to memorize these lists systematically. After some number of repetition, Ebbinghaus would attempt to recall the item on the list. It turned out that his ability to recall the items improved as the number of repetitions went up rapidly at first and then more slowly until finally the list was mastered. This was the world's first learning curve. Ebbinghaus, using the savings measure of memory, discovered that the greatest amount of forgetting occurred soon after learning the list. Then the memory slowly weakened with time. The curve Ebbinghaus discovered is called the forgetting curve. Ebbinghaus also studied how repetition of what he called overlearning affects memory retention. He defined overlearning as the number of repetitions of material after that material can be 100% recalled. Ebbinghaus was the first to discover the serial position curve, the relation between the serial position of an item, its place in the list, and the ability to recall it. Items near the beginning of the list are easier to recall than those in the items near the beginning of the list are easier to recall than those in the middle, the primacy effect. Those near the end of the list are also easier to recall than those in the middle, the recency effect. These two effects together yield a curve that is roughly U-shaped. Interference theory of forgetting. Interference theory refers to the idea that forgetting occurs because a recall of certain items interferes with the recall of other items. According to Baddeley 1999, the interference theory states that forgetting occurs because memories interfere with and disrupt one another. In other words, forgetting occurs because of interference from other memories. Interference by previous memories is proactive interference. Interference by later learning is retroactive interference. Underwood and Postman 1960 showed that interference is first maximal when two different responses have been associated with the same stimulus. 2. Even intermediate when two similar responses have been associated with the same stimulus. 3. Minimal when two different stimuli are involved. Jacobi et al. 2001 argued that proactive interference might occur for two reasons: due to problems in retrieving the correct response, discriminability due to the strength of the incorrect response, learned initially, bias or habit. Research shows the latter to be the case. Trace decay theory of forgetting. Trace decay, also called disuse theory, is the earliest theory of forgetting. The term decay theory was first coined by Edward Thorndike in his book, The Psychology of Learning, in 1914. This simply states that if a person does not access and use the memory representation they have formed, the memory trace will fade or decay over time. It is believed that learning leaves a trace in the brain as a result of excitation of nerve cells. The trace may take the form of neural activity, which gradually dies away unless activated by further presentations of the item or by rehearsal. According to the trace decay theory of forgetting, the events between learning and recall have no effect whatsoever on recall. The longer the time, the more the memory trace decays, and as a consequence, more information is forgotten. The decay theory of forgetting has an intuitive appeal about it. It seems to describe the way in which certain types of memory fade away, like the feeling of touch or an auditory sound. Jenkins and Dellenbach 1924 pointed out that decay theory predicts a constant rate of forgetting irrespective of the activity undertaken in the interval. They tested this prediction by asking participants to learn lists of nonsense syllables and testing recall after various intervals of sleep on normal activity. Forgetting was most rapid for the normal activity group, and this can be explained by interference theory, but not by the trace decay, which should produce equal forgetting rates. In this way, the results came out to be opposite. Those who remain awake after memorizing weakening condition show greater forgetting than those who sleeping condition. The theory of trace decay has been criticized on several grounds. First, this theory fails to explain why some memories fade and others are maintained for life. Secondly, decay theory has difficulty dealing with situations where items which cannot be remembered at one time can be remembered at a future time, even though no additional presentations have been made. Third, also 1995 has concluded that there is no evidence that the major cause for forgetting from long-term memory is neurological decay. Retrieval failure theory. The retrieval failure theory says that often memories can't be recalled because there are certain retrieval cues that are absent. For example, you are trying hard to recall a person whom you met at a party whose name or face you do not remember. Just then your sister described the dress of that person. You realize that you are now able to recall that person. Thus, the dress of the person acted as a cue which helped you to retrieve the information. This is referred to as cue dependent forgetting. There are two different types of cue dependent forgetting. First, context dependent forgetting. It occurs if the environmental cues that were present when learning took place are absent when the information has to be recalled. In other words, it refers to improved recall of specific episodes or information when the context present and encoding and retrieval are the same. 2. State dependent forgetting. It is the phenomenon through which memory retrieval is most efficient when an individual is in the same state of consciousness as they were when the memory was formed. In other words, if we are very happy when we learn information, we may remember it better if we are very happy at the time of recall. This was investigated in a study by Bower et al., where he manipulated the mood of his participants while they were under hypnosis. There is considerable evidence that information is more likely to be retrieved from long term memory if appropriate retrieval cues are present. This evidence comes from both laboratory experiments and everyday experience. A retrieval cue can be a variety of things, categories, contexts, physical states, underwater, etc. For example, a teacher giving clues when trying to elicit an answer from students. Thank you.